Welcome to the debut of My Corner Table. I'm Lee Court, and I'm here in historic St. Augustine at the legendary Raintree Restaurant with my guests for dinner, Lorna McDonald and Jeffrey Spear. Sometimes dinner with friends is the best way to spend an evening. Cheers. So welcome. You should be welcoming me because I'm in your restaurant here at
Absolutely.
Raintree. And Jeffrey, I'm so glad the two of you don't really know each other this evening because you both bring global gastronomy to life. And at some point this evening over dinner, I want to talk about your books. Lorna, share the story with Jeffrey and me again about the history of Raintree and how you've been here in St. Augustine for 40 plus years.
Yes, that's the scary part. It's like, so we came over here on a boat. We sailed from England back in, we left in 81, which is hard to believe that I would end up in a restaurant here and still be here 40 plus years later. So we don't need to do any counting to figure out how old anybody is, because it's like a lot of Fountain of Youth water, right, Lee? Can't get too much of that.
Fountain of Youth, yes. A little plug for Fountain of Youth.
Absolutely. So anyway, we opened back in 81. As I said, we crossed the Atlantic. We left in 79 from England, had 2 years of amazing sailing on a 45-foot ketch. My mom, my dad, my brother, and myself. And then we had a couple of friends, what have you, join us along the way. And it was an amazing time of my life. And I think the crazy part is that we probably could have kept going forever, but I think there's also that part where you want to have something normal in your life. Like I found that everywhere I went, I would meet some nice, handsome young man, and then my dad would be like, "Okay, we're leaving."
And you were a teenager.
Yes, so I would be quite happy to hang around for a while, but it was like, nope, we got to go, time to go. So
had you ever left the UK before this great adventure?
Yes, we kept our boat. We've always sailed. It's like from baby. We used to drive my mother crazy, going with the carry cot and getting on a sailboat. But my dad is a sailing fanatic, so we always sailed. And then once we were, every summer, every Easter, every holiday, every vacation we had, we would go down to the south of France where we kept our boat, and we sailed. So we would go to Italy, Spain, all over the place.
So when you're in that much water, are you good swimmers?
Yes, I'm definitely a good swimmer. Well, most of the time you swam, you were way out of your depth. I mean, it's not like, you jump off the boat, you're in it.
I know. That's why I'm asking it.
Yes.
And you're a global traveler. And my curiosity is because you've ended up in the restaurant and food industry. Do you remember all those days at sea and even eating? I mean, it's not like somebody came and restocked the boat. And
No.
You had to be very aware upon packing that your parents packed something nutritious, and you didn't know how long the trip was going to take.
No, our trip actually ended up taking about 18 days, which was actually very quick for a cruising yacht. But we also came in Hurricane David, so we had an extra amount of wind to push us along. In fact, we drug ropes behind the boat to slow the boat down, and buckets or whatever we could do to slow, because the boat was just going too fast for its hull speed. So it was extremely exciting sailing.
I've never heard that said before.
Well, it's a true story. It's like, so our eating habits on the boat were pretty limited for most of it, because it was really, you got yourself locked in the galley and you figured out, whatever you were making for dinner and whatever. It was, I wouldn't call it any form of gastronomy at all. I mean, it was just like whatever you could.
And you weren't at sea long enough to need hardtack.
No.
And at that age, you probably didn't even know what gastronomy meant.
No, probably not. And then also our fresh water tanks burst because we were under so much,
Oh my God.
So all the water. So we ended up with like jerry cans of water, which we had as extra on the deck of the boat. So that became like a. So we said, well, we could just clean our teeth in champagne, because we had wine and champagne. So that was always our family joke. Let's clean our teeth in champagne.
Opening this restaurant and deciding they're going to use the history of the family and give everybody a glass of champagne upon arrival and a toothbrush.
I think we might be onto something.
Had you ever, in your travels of gastronomy, gone to her country, gone to the UK and eating the food that Lorna grew up
That's a
on?
test.
Well, the UK was one of my first adventures after I graduated college. You graduate college, and the thing to do is at the time it was Europe on $5 a day. And when I went, they had just published the new book Europe on $10 a day.
Oh, what luxury.
But I went, and I was staying in hostels, and I went to London. I had some of they were experiences that I don't think were even possible today. But I had the best damn fish and chips there. And there was just this place with these two enormous bathtub-sized frying kettles. And they were, and I didn't have any
Was
culinary
that for the
background.
fish and the chips?
Yeah, but I'd never seen anything like it. And also I wasn't culinary, I was just eating food. And if it was interesting, I like to eat. I've always liked to eat. But if it was interesting, I'll try it. And people were in line, and it was amazing. So I remember the fish
How
and
old
chips
were
in
you
London.
at that time,
Probably
Jim?
18, 19.
That had to be back when they had fish and chips in real newspaper.
Yeah, they did.
Not because it's
Oh.
not the same
Yeah.
now. They put it in the
Yeah.
plastic to go stuff.
there was
When
some-
did that change? Do you have any idea?
It changed.
when that
What changed from when I left to when I went back? I mean, it's like it's just not the same. The vinegar and the salt,
No.
it doesn't all like get in the newspaper anymore. You know, it's different.
The only thing I'm aware of living down south now on newspaper is when we have a low country boil. And you put the paper on the table and everybody's eating and picking and enjoying. So it must have been that same feeling of
Yeah,
eating from
it was
the
the way to do
newspaper.
it,
It's such a treasure. When you were traveling in the early years, were you in the culinary world
No.
or were you an artist?
I was an artist. I grew up taking art classes. I learned to draw starting at 6 years old. And when I went
can
to
imagine the
when
look
I
of the
went to-
tomatoes.
and when I went to university, I wanted to be a scientific illustrator. And so I was a biology major. And in order to be a biology major, you had to take physics and math and chemistry and all these really difficult science prerequisites. And I was not doing well. And I found out that, and there were art courses I wanted to take that were illustration. And so I looked at, well, if I become an art major, I can switch, and then I can just take the insect morphology kinds of classes, as electives. And so I swapped, and then when I swapped, I discovered this thing called graphic design. And so my training now, it's graphic design. My business started as a graphic design studio, and it's come a long way since then. But I became culinary for two reasons. One is, as a designer, I found that when I had a food client, it was more fun, because we got samples. and the other, it was before the Food Network. And so there weren't a lot of people that were catering to
For
food.
the Food
Yeah.
Network.
And then, long story short, I ended up moving to Australia to meet my now ex-wife. But anyway, while I was there, I couldn't work for a year. And so I only had a certain amount of money. It wasn't going to last very long. I said, we can't eat out anymore. And so I went to cooking school to learn to cook. And because
Don't we just love your innovation, really?
What
Yeah.
you have to do to survive.
Wow.
yeah, and so the first time I made pad thai, I got the package of noodles, the rice noodles, and they're hard because they're dry. And it
Don't
says,
tell me.
I put the sauce and everything in the wok, and then I just put the dry noodles in there. I didn't know you were supposed to cook them first.
He's never working at Raintree. Really.
I'm sure the skills have improved since then.
Just a bit. Yeah, pad thai still is not my easiest thing to make, but yeah.
So all the years that I've known you, because I've known Lorna 25 years, since I came to St. Augustine to do publicity for the bed and breakfasts. And when you host travel writers, you need to expose them to the most wonderful food of the destination. And Raintree has been a legend for such a long time. Between the gardens outside and the romance, everywhere you sit, even at a corner, especially at a corner table at Raintree, it's so romantic. You must be seeing endless engagements and renewal of vows and the romance of
Yes.
coming to Raintree, and of course
Yes.
St. Augustine.
Yes, lots of engagements, lots of weddings, lots of rehearsal dinners, lots of courtyard weddings. It's been and they become more and more too. I think this is like, I think a lot of people are like condensing their weddings also. So it's like, instead of having like this huge event, they kind of like the smaller, which, you know, we can accommodate that.
And you know, in my past 25 years, knowing that's how long I know Lorna, I don't know you as long,
No.
Jeff, but each time I've seen you and run into you in the area, we're at a media party somewhere, at a new opening, a new restaurant, a club, enjoying the ambiance of something new. Although here in St. Augustine, everything is good, is old, and,
Yes.
and legendary. So it's great. I know one of the things I do want to share with both of you is, oh my gosh, I forgot that both of you are authors. This is your family's book.
Correct.
Your father wrote
Yes.
the book about the, oh my gosh, into my fourth quarter, going for overtime. You mean on the boat with the family?
So he's actually written another book since, in his fourth quarter. So he wrote this when he was like 75. So it's basically a story of his life from start to finish and how we got here and ended up here. And the picture on the front is my family when we were crossing, which was,
And you as a teenager, oh heavens,
I know.
adorable.
I was young
And
then.
when you read his
And-
book, was this a history you knew, or were there revelations in there?
There were certainly some revelations in there, or things that maybe I forgot, or, you know, you just don't think about. Well, I mean, he had an interesting life too. It's like he ended up stowed away on a boat when he was 16 to go back to England to find his mother. He was in Canada at the time. So he's an exciting, you know, he's had an exciting life, and he's always been adventurous. So
What a fantastic family.
Yep.
And so many years ago to have done this together. Not many people have an opportunity to do that. And your book that I'm seeing for the first time, My Life in Gluttony, a culinary adventure. Oh,
Sounds
every
like fun.
page. And oh my gosh, I just opened to a page that says Mom's Chopped Liver. Where did that come from? Mom's Chopped Liver. I thought you were an international traveler, not just, are you a New Yorker?
No, but so the premise behind the book is I was working all around the world, funded on projects that were funded by USAID. And I was working in countries that are considered emerging economies. And I'm helping them with product development, and then packaging and branding and competitiveness, because for them to make money, they want to export into high value markets. So as an example, most recently I've been working in the country of Georgia, and high value markets to them are the country of Germany, UK, Japan, and the Gulf countries down in, you know, the Middle East and North Africa.
True global gastronomy.
Yeah.
One of my favorite collection of words.
So my friends were saying, you know, I come home and talk about the foods I've had. They said, Jeff, you should write a book. And I didn't want to just write about what's work. And so I said, all right, I'm going to start with my childhood. And the book, it's a collection of stories about the most memorable foods I've had. Not so much about the places, but the foods I had in those places. So in LA, you know, it was, you know, having Pink's hot dogs, you know, and New York, it's hot dogs too. And only because I just made them, I had this one recipe in there called Penn Station potatoes. And it's because before Penn Station was remodeled, every time I'd go to New York to go get camera equipment, because I used to be interested in photography, and going out from the station to get out to 8th Avenue, I'd walk past this little bagel place. I mean, it was the size of this room, maybe. It was probably smaller.
Thus, the chopped liver.
No, the chopped liver's
I love the chopped liver.
The chopped liver's
Chopped
another
liver.
story. But anyway, every time I went to the bagel place, I'd have a pumpernickel bagel with lox and cream cheese.
Yeah.
And so I make this little potato. It's an appetizer thing.
So you love to cook
Yeah.
as well as write. Because every time I read one of your stories, you get my mouth watering because you're a great writer.
Well, thank you. But over the
Really?
years, my career, look, I started out as a graphic designer. I started out wanting to be a scientific illustrator. And so the career, it's been a sort of an organic evolution and growth and change. And so now I have pretty significant culinary credentials. I'm not a chef. You don't want me in your kitchen, I promise you.
I have my husband, so that's good.
So something is happening in your kitchen today.
Yes.
And I remember the very first time I came here 25 years ago with the writers, and I wanted to give them an experience that was authentic in St. Augustine. But since I didn't know Raintree yet and I had just met you, I trusted you to tell me what we should treat them to. And I think we started with
Beef Wellington.
beef
So,
Wellington.
beef
So
Wellington
we're going to have a
and-
chance to
Yeah.
taste her.
Beef Wellington and brandy pepper steak are the two items that have been on the menu like since day one.
And
it's-
you are still working this restaurant and running this restaurant, a family
Yes.
restaurant. Who's here
Well,
in your family?
my husband's back in the kitchen right now. Just fixed us a beef Wellington, which I believe he's going to bring out so we can like check it out and see if he's got it up to scratch. I'm sure he does. My son also works at the front door, and all the other kids are smart enough to not do it, and to stay out
How
of the
many are
restaurant
there?
business.
How many children?
We have 4 between us.
And they're not in the restaurant business.
No,
Do they like
just
to
the
eat?
one. They all love to eat. They're all, yes, they all love to eat.
So in the restaurant industry, when you have a family running it and it's a holiday and you're open for your guests, how do you deal with that, with the balance of your family? Because you want to treat your family to a holiday.
Well,
whether
Thanksgiving
it's-
is Tuesday. That's
Oh,
because you don't want to have turkey after. We've seen so much turkey by the time we get through Thanksgiving.
Right.
So we have to-
Anticipation
correct.
is so much better
So
than
my husband
leftovers.
Chris always cooks an extra turkey, and then that Tuesday, so we start cooking. Or I shouldn't say we. He starts cooking.
You don't cook.
I do. I actually since the pandemic, I've spent more time in the kitchen, which I love. It's like I really enjoy. I mean, at home, I always do the cooking. But it's like, but anyway, he starts like on that Monday. So usually by Tuesday, it's a great night for us to have our Thanksgiving. By Thursday, we're definitely, we don't want to see turkey.
Do you want to go fetch something delicious
Sure.
for us to
Let's-
taste at the table?
Let me go get that beef
And do
Wellingtons.
you mind tasting it with us? I know maybe you don't have a chance to eat it as often
No, I
as
don't.
you serve it. Okay, good.
You're absolutely right.
It's so much fun to do my corner
steak knife,
table. Will you meet me again somewhere at another corner table? One of the things I love about St. Augustine is that 25 years ago, we were not known as a culinary mecca.
Well,
Thank
for
you.
me, 5 years ago, it was hard to
I want these.
recommend much down here. And now it's
Really,
such-
5 years?
It's
Well, a
amazing.
lot has happened here.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
The restaurants, the breweries, the global culture that has settled in St. Augustine, not just in food, but music and art too.
Wow.
Oh,
So we're going to do this like an appetizer, just because,
oh,
So
fantastic.
would that be a single serving?
Yes, this would
Okay.
be a single serving.
I have to tell you, this is the first time I'm not grabbing my phone to take
I was just going to say the same
You're
thing.
not allowed.
We are definitely we're food addicts, aren't we
Oh, I think we all are.
Wow.
Um,
And so basically, this is the filet mignon, and then that's in the middle, and there's a little truffle pate, and then wrapped in puff pastry,
It's a beautiful presentation.
baked in the oven. You see, we had a
Lorna,
nice
that's an appetizer?
medium red. No, this is a dinner, but
Oh,
we're
that's
gonna
what I
we're going
thought.
to
It
we're
looks-
going to have an appetizer.
Oh,
with
we
it,
are
'cause,
we're having a taste.
because we can. We can do it our way.
While you share that with us, tell us about the layout of Raintree, which is so beautiful because you do have a private room upstairs too,
We do. So we
and a
have
dessert bar.
and a dessert bar.
Dessert bar.
So the dessert bar's in the entryway of the
Thank you.
restaurant, where we have a crepe iron, so we do the traditional French crepes, and so we do banana one, mixed berries, all different styles, and all our desserts are homemade and made in-house.
I'm gonna have to come back.
So
and
you're
sniff
going to have to,
around.
yes, because or we could just do this again and do dessert first.
My
That's-
knife and fork are ready.
Okay, I've just about got my piece going. This looks so nice and tender. All right, I'm ready. Okay. I guess we should say cheers.
So wait a minute. Cheers.
Here's
Thank
to-
you very much.
here's to
We
beef
are
Wellington.
thank you for doing our debut of My Corner Table. I'm
It's
really
my
honored
pleasure.
to have you. Really, you're one of the iconic women in hospitality in St. Augustine. We were just talking about the growth of the culinary scene here that's so culturally exciting.
It is.
You know,
How do you feel about being called iconic? I've got mixed feelings about that word.
Yes, I think I kind of might. Yeah, I might agree with you on that, but it's okay. Whatever. I've been called worse things, I think. Maybe. But this looks rather yummy.
Well, look, if you had a sailor's life, I'm sure you've been called and heard just about everything there is to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yummy,
Oh, yeah.
yummy pate.
It's still the same
And
as I
to
remember
me,
it.
Yeah,
that's
wonderful.
what I go for first. Really, it's fantastic.
Tradition. More iconic tradition. It really is delicious.
Cheers again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the conceptual heart of your menu?
So it's actually changed. When we first opened 44, 45 years ago, it was cummerbunds and bow ties for the servers, and it was jacket and tie. It was all very, very, very formal. And we were lucky enough to get Florida Trend Golden Spoon Award in our first year. So that put us one
And
of
you
the top
just
10.
got that again,
That
like
was-
40 plus years later. You
It just-
keep receiving it. It's great.
Well, things are, all the dynamics have changed dramatically, and I mean, obviously the hospitality industry has grown so much, but it's like that really put us on the map. It made us one of the top 10 in the first year we were open. So with that being said, throughout the course of the years when we had the recession and we changed our menu dramatically, we were never particularly family oriented, but now you feel perfectly comfortable coming in with children and, you know, I mean, obviously well-behaved children. We don't, you know, don't care for them when they run around, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, you know, things have changed. So our menu's got a lot more Italian stuff.
and the children have to be dressed. So
Yeah.
once children get dressed, they must have a different little inner attitude about their behavior too.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I had
No,
to
you're
throw
right.
that in.
You're right. It's like, but you know, so we've definitely changed over the years. So it's, you know, we have a lot of lamb, duck, veal, chicken. We have a lot of pasta dishes now. So it's kind of evolved to incorporate, you know, to keep the financial side of it, so we can serve different markets and not just be one point.
One of the things I want to share with both of you, and I don't know if you're aware that there is a global gastronomy project coming to North Florida and coastal Georgia in the next year, celebrating 2026. And it's the First Coast region of global gastronomy that is going to be connecting people around the world with each other with this gastronomic project. Lucky for us in St. Augustine, it's coming here. When Francisco Guitard came to St. Augustine last year to, I think he was scouting areas of North America. Where was he going to land this project to connect us to something that was bigger than we are? And it's really hard to exceed the excitement and the history of St. Augustine.
Well, this is
You know.
this is where the whole, what you would call American foodways, this is where it started, because this is the first longest human inhabited city in
Right.
North America. And so you had the indigenous, I wrote a book about this, so.
Thank you
so
case
I-
you're
You're a great dinner guest.
but anyway, you know, there were the Indians, the indigenous peoples that lived here, and they ate certain foods. They had their holy trinity, which was, I think it was beans, squash, and corn.
Where were the oysters? We're so
Well, they
so
ate that
oyster-driven.
too, but that trinity was part of the
Yeah.
core of their diet. But when the various explorers / conquerors came, you know, before they showed up, and this is what I find amazing, all the foods that we take for granted in America, there was no beef, there was no pork. Think about it when you, Thanksgiving dinner, no potatoes, no vanilla for the ice cream, no chocolate, so many ingredients, no wheat flour.
Everybody must have been very slender.
Well, people were slender back in the 50s. You know? Thank you, McDonald's.
And that's MC, not MAC, just saying.
Oh.
You know.
Yeah, but the foodways here changed dramatically, and then the preparation changed with the fact that all of these explorers were coming with Africans on their boats, and they brought their foodways. And I thought it was really interesting that what we now know as Southern food is really inspired by the way they cooked, because they were as slaves, they were the cooks in the house. You know, they served master, and they introduced all this fried food. And you know, there's a good expression, because as slaves they would eat anything they could get, and when it came to pork, they ate everything from the
hoofs to the ears.
the rooter to the tutor.
Okay.
Yeah, but what we know
I
is
have to be in a right mood to read that book of yours.
yeah.
Right.
But this is the place where it happened. You know, the British brought beef and peas and apples and
Yeah, we got
I
English,
love your
Spanish.
knowledge of the evolution of food from really when people say the fork to the table and all of the
Yeah.
transitions of food, but somehow you bring it all together. And I am so happy to be here and celebrate you and your family.
Thank you.
To launch My Corner Table with two friends that I really admire. I love you. I love you. I hope we get to do this again.
this has been
And
fun.
I hope
Yeah.
you'll join us next time for My Corner Table. We may be back at Rangetree to continue the conversation and end up in their dessert bar, which has been another legend of St. Augustine for 40 years. Late at night, you can just meet friends and family in the dessert bar and have a late night cordial, and maybe Bananas Foster, as I remember, was my very favorite.
Yep,
So thank you.
you're welcome.
Bon appetit.
Thank you.
Let's continue.
You too.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I love you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.